Hello, and thank you for joining me for another video. And today's video is about my biggest stock holding, which is Rocket Lab. I've held this stock since before it even de-SPACed. It's my favorite company. It's a super exciting company to follow, and it obviously has done great investor returns as well. What I want to talk about today is some news which is probably not as good, which is some damage or a failure of their stage 1 Neutron tank. We're going to go through some pictures that we've got on X of what's happened. We're going to go through the release of Rocket Lab, what they've actually said about what happens. And then, in my personal opinion, I've followed the space industry for a very long time, seen like the rise of SpaceX. In my personal opinion, what this means for the Neutron program moving forward in this year. So, first of all, we have a look over onto Rocket Lab. So you can see after hours, we did see a drop of 4%. Rocket Lab has been on an absolute tear this year so far, hitting just missing $100. But we have seen a bit of a cut today, and then also this 4% drop after hours. So people obviously do see this news as negative on the stock at the moment. So let's go on to what actually happened. So this is the official announcement from Rocket Lab, and what is really good is, for me, as soon as some stuff started going around or pictures might have been shared, this announcement was out pretty much as soon as the problem happened, which is good to show they're being transparent from this. And this basically goes through, it's only a short release, but today they're announcing an update relating to the development of its Neutron rocket. As the company pushes Neutron to the limits and beyond to qualify its systems and structures for launch, qualification testing of the stage 1 tank overnight resulted in a rupture during the hydrostatic pressure trial. So a hydrostatic pressure trial, I believe, is basically when they're filling it with water, basically, to see how it can hold under pressure like it will be doing with its liquid propellants during flight. Testing failure is not uncommon during the qualification testing. We intentionally test structures to their limits to validate structure integrity and safety margins to ensure the robust requirements for a successful launch can be comfortably met. There was no significant damage to the test structure or facilities. The next stage 1 tank is already in production, and Neutron's development campaign continues while the team assesses the outcomes. The team is reviewing the stage 1 test data and will determine the extent to which Neutron's launch schedule the impact of Neutron's launch schedule. The company tends to provide an update on the Neutron schedule during its 2025 Q4 earnings call. So what is a positive about this? Well, first of all, the start on the positive is that no of the test structure or facilities has been damaged. When rockets go boom, they can destroy absolutely everything around it. And the systems they have for launching and testing are very complex and very expensive as well. So it's good to see at least that's not damaged. What we do need to look at is, okay, some people are debating whether this is a test tank. It doesn't look like this was the test tank. It looks like this was actually the stage 1 tank that was going to fly on the Neutron rocket. And what that does mean is that what we're now going to be relying on to launch the first launch of the Neutron is their second tank that they had planned for the second launch. So it depends on how advanced that second tank is that it can just be moved over and replaced for the first flight. In the conference call updates, they have told us that, I think last quarter and probably even the quarter before, they were already in progress of building the next Neutron rockets that are going to come after the initial launch. We know they want to build a very high cadence. So hopefully they've made a lot of progress on the second one and maybe even the third one. And this is pretty much ready there to be accelerated and moved on to replace this first one. I would guess that it's going to lead to some sort of delays. I mean, they have said here the extent of the impact to Neutron's launch schedule. So the extent, not if, they're saying the extent to which, like, it is going to have a delay. And I think it basically means how far is the second Neutron rocket in progress of being made that can then be switched in. Also have to make sure that there has been no block upgrades between the first Neutron and the second Neutron, because hopefully this second stage 1 can also seamlessly go in and match the other stages, the stage 2 and the fairings and stuff like that. Because we know that they're all being made separately in separate areas and then will be mated together at the Wallops launch facility. So now let's move on to what's actually happened here. So the middle river, from what I can see, is where they're making their stage 1 tank. Their fairings have been made in other places as well as their stage 2 tank. But this was shared by SpacePat on X, gave us some really good pictures straight away. And this is on behalf of NASA Spaceflight as well, who are fantastic at covering the space industry and have been doing for many, many years. You can see here we've had, he's managed to capture some pictures of damaged carbon fiber. This is obviously where the failure happened, and this tank has just exploded while it's being tested. And he's given us a couple of updates here. So we've got that past one, and then we can also see here as well. This is obviously the destroyed tank that Rocket Lab is referencing, and this is where the problem has happened. So obviously this tank, stage 1, that they are getting ready to fly, is what's suffered here. Also look into this Twitter post. So this was posted recently by Will Hall, who is also taking pictures of their Middle River facility. We can see what this actually looked like. So this, to me, is not just a test tank. This is a very complex piece of engineering, and this was the tank that was getting ready to fly, the stage 1 that was getting ready to fly. You can see it's completely kitted out with all of the stuff around it and all the connections and the sensors and stuff like that. So it does unfortunately look like this was a flight article that unfortunately had a lot of work and money poured into this that has now been destroyed. So this is the thing that looks to have exploded. And if we go back to this original Twitter post, there has also been some updates that SpacePat has provided as well of what it used to look like. So this is the article. It's been covered on top. They might have some sort of pressure or weight simulation on the top while they've been pressure testing it. And this is ultimately what has exploded. So what does this mean? So if first of all, we look at the positives, we know rockets are very, very hard. You can follow SpaceX's development of their Falcon 1 and their Falcon 9 and also Starship. These things do happen. And what is a positive that they've tested this to the max and this has not happened during flight. Of course, we'd rather this didn't happen. This is obviously a flight ready article and a lot of time and money has been put into this, but a failure has happened at this critical testing stage. So what they're going to need to look at is not just, okay, let's just get the next Neutron, flip it over and start launching that. They're going to have to dig into why did this actually happen and see, well, make sure basically this isn't a design fault. This isn't a problem in their design that means that it's failed under pressure testing. But hopefully they find something, maybe even some sort of laminate in the carbon fiber, some sort of connection, anything that's going to happen. There's a million things that they're going to be testing on. So that's what they're going to have to look into to make sure that this doesn't happen again. I do have full confidence in Rocket Lab and them digging into this investigation. Remember a couple of years ago, they unfortunately had a failure of a flight and they just went hands-on investigating what happened to this. And Peter Beck did actually provide some context on just how complicated that issue was. And it was how electricity changes under vacuum and actually managed to create an arc. Very complicated stuff. I don't know how they work this out after a thing has exploded in space, but they have all the data and the sensors and the technology to work this out. So I have full confidence that although this has happened, they are going to be able to dig into this and find out why it's happened and hopefully stop it happening again. So if we go back to what does this mean for Rocket Lab, the company this year? They haven't given an announcement, but what they have said is it looks like we're going to expect a delay in Neutron launch. So we know they were targeting sometime around the middle of the year to get this thing on the pad. From this recent development and their own press release, it does look like that's going to be delayed. Now, this is a bad thing for Neutron, but what we should always remember is that Rocket Lab has so many things going on inside its company. The majority of its revenue doesn't even come from launch currently. It comes from space systems, producing things that are used in space and also building their own satellites for customers. We've had a huge SDA contract announced for over $500 million at the end of last year that they're working on. So in terms of like a revenue hit, this will not be affecting us. We've still got lots of great things we're working on. Neutron or Electron is supposed to fly later today, actually, for the first time this year. We've got HASTE, which is accelerating. We've got these other satellites, which are also accelerating. And we've also got their Escapade mission, which is on its way to Mars at the moment, that they're in full control of, and it's their job to navigate that to get them to Mars. So there are lots of exciting things happening in Rocket Lab. This is unfortunately a blip. It will be interesting to see, with the massive run that the stock has had, how this affects us. Okay, now, so looking back into the stock, we're actually only down 1.5% in the after hours. So it seems like people are just shrugging this off, actually, and it's not really bothering them, which is good to see. I mean, Rocket Lab has been so strong year to date so far. Maybe it will just forget this news and move over and look at all the positive stuff that's happening with Rocket Lab in the future. You can see after the hours, we were down 4%. So that's recovered a lot of that recently. Over the long term, of course, this is just a tiny little blip in the journey of Rocket Lab, and a tiny little blip from over the next few years in terms of what we'll look back on. But there's so much great stuff that Rocket Lab's working on. That's what I'm going to be focusing on, and that's what I think hopefully the market will be focusing on for this year as well. This does happen in the space industry. I've followed the space industry for a very long time. I know that SpaceX, since the start of their journey in the Falcon 1, they had mistakes. Falcon 9, they had mistakes. They blew up, had some quite notable explosions in the Falcon 9. And of course, with Starship, they're they show off all of the failures they make in Starship, because that's the whole point of the space program that they're developing there. It's to iterate very quickly. So over the long run, I'm sure we'll look back at this as just a little blip in the radar. I just wanted to share my thoughts and my personal opinion on what's happening. And I thought it was really useful to go through those things on X as well. That is what is so great about the platform. We can get news and real world pictures straight away of what's actually happened. So I really hope that you've found this useful. If you're a Rocket Lab investor, please do let me know in the comments, and let me know your thoughts and opinions on this as well. How do you think this affects Rocket Lab in the long term, or doesn't affect it in the long term? And what will you be doing with Rocket Lab stock over the near time? Are you buying or selling? I'd love to know that as well. So I hope you found this video useful. I will be back very soon with some more news and the stocks that I'm interested in. And apart from that, have a great day, and I'll see you soon.